All right, hey guys. Today I am with Colton on Colton's podcast, and I've got some beef. I've got some beef with the people on the internet, and I want to see your opinion.
Okay.
So I was getting in some Instagram fights the other day with some people. There was a great golf coach on there who posted a video, basically explaining that driving was more for dough and putting was more for show. I mean, that was the premise of the video, and everyone's like, no, putting's more important, putting's more important. Well, I can statistically prove that driving is more important than putting. I want to see what you think of that. Okay.
Sounds like we're in alignment.
Okay.
Yeah.
I used to believe the opposite too, and you always hear the term drive for show, putt for dough, right? But when you actually look at the stats, and we're going to use some examples here, driving is statistically more important than putting.
Okay.
The first reason: driving impacts every part of the game.
Yep.
When you're putting, the hole's done. It does not impact any other part of the game. So right away, we know that driving has a compounding effect. The next example is if we look at the greatest players of the world. We've got currently Scotty Scheffler, not the longest player, but number one in strokes gained. We look at our previous number one players. You look at guys like Rory McIlroy, Tiger Woods, Dustin Johnson. All of these players hit it very, very far. The exception to the rule is your Brian Harmons that win every now and then. But these guys usually aren't on top for a long period of time. They have moments of greatness.
Sure.
But when you look at the guys that consistently do it week after week, they hit it a long way. The last one is actually just our strokes gained.
Yes.
So if we look at strokes gained, Scotty Scheffler, number one off the tee. Strokes gained off the tee.
Strokes gained off the tee, okay.
Well, with plus 2.5 per round.
2.5 shots gained per round.
Shots gained per round. The worst on tour is minus 2.5.
So 5-shot swing.
5-shot difference. Do you know what it is for putting?
No.
The number one strokes gained putting is 0.7.
So you're only gaining a 3/4 of a shot.
3/4 per round.
By putting better.
If you're the best putter in the world compared to the,
That's insane.
And then the worst one is minus 0.9. So there's like a 1.5 stroke difference, really, between the best putter on tour and the worst.
Gotcha.
Driving is a 5-stroke better. Like, that's what, 3 times more important?
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, I mean, that's something that I've been screaming from the mountaintops for the better part of like 3-4 years. I'm just like, guys, like, and I still get hate for this. They're like, oh, driving's just for show. It's like, okay, well, if I give you 20, 30 extra yards off the tee, you're dramatically going to hit probably 1 to 2 less, minimum 1 to 2 less clubs into holes. So you're statistically going to hit it closer because you have less of a shotgun dispersion because you're hitting it with more loft. But the fact that one of the things, like when I play, and I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but when I play with guys, other professionals that hit it 300 off the tee, 280 in the air, rolls to 300, and they're happy with that. And then we'll drive up to our balls after I crack a good one. He's like, and he looks at me in the cart, or they'll look at me in the cart and like, dude, I really got a hold of that, and you're 70 to 100 yards in front of me. And I was like, yeah. And it's like, okay, well, now let's just talk about the example of using it as a par 5.
Right.
And it's within the go zone. Maybe they have to hit 3-wood or 5-wood in order to try to get to the green. How close are you actually going to hit a 3-wood from 260 yards away?
You're probably hitting it 1 in 10 times, right? Like,
it's going to be very, very minimal. And I have a 5-iron in. Or maybe even something a little bit less.
Yeah, you're still not hitting it a lot or all the time, but you're maybe hitting it 1 in 5, 1 in 4, rather than 1 in 10.
Statistically speaking, I'm going to hit the 5-iron closer.
Yeah.
Because it's not going to have as much gear effect. And it's like, well, not only is it an advantage off the tee, but it's an advantage off the tee to put me in position to score. That's the thing that people don't understand, is that you need to be able to put yourself into position to score, to actually score. It's not just like, oh, I need to work on my wedges more to hit it closer. Your dispersion's only going to be that close. Everybody's human. You're not a fucking robot. No. So you're only going to be able to dispersionally hit it that close.
And that dispersion, by the way, so for amateurs, like a good amateur, a scratch golfer, something, that dispersion is 40 feet on average.
Correct.
For a pro, the best in the world, it's 24 feet. You're not one putting from 24 feet.
Very often.
Yeah,
it's like
it's going to happen.
Percent. Yeah,
really but small. It's from both of those distance. The time that you actually make the birdie putts is when you get lucky and you hit it to 6 feet. And then you're going to make that, a good amount of the time, not every time. That's the difference, right? So obviously there's going to be some haters out there saying putting is very important. I'd say beginner golfers, like, it's probably the fastest way to improve.
Sure, no problem.
But if we're talking about becoming a low single digit or breaking 80, you're going to be playing enough golf to be putting reasonably well. So it's a stat to check. I mean, if you're making 36 putts per round, that's not good enough. 2 putts per hole. Like, you're going to have to be better than that. But it doesn't take a lot of time to get better at putting, I think. Go to the range, try some drills, get a good putting routine really. But I think Bob Rotella said it best. Like putting is just like throwing a ball to your friend.
It is.
See
really
hole,
is.
hit ball to hole, right?
Yeah.
There's nothing technical really about it.
Within
reason.
Within reason, for sure. I mean, I've practiced my putting once this year.
Yeah, and you're one of the best putters I know, by the way, for the record.
And I've averaged, and I could give you my Golf Canada stats, and like I'm like 1.7 or maybe
so that's
1.8
really good.
around.
Yeah,
so it's
yeah.
I made a putter switch this year, which really helped. I switched to an arm lock putter, which made the world of difference. But like as far as like practicing my stroke, the only thing I practiced a little bit better than my stroke was actually like figuring out like how to read greens just a little bit more, because I was already a good green reader before.
Right.
But now it's like, okay, how do I read it even better? So then I started focusing on that and like looking at those statistics when I was playing. But I've only practiced my putting legitimately one time, other than just warming up and making sure my speed's good. I personally think that speed is more important, which is why people say that like, oh, well, putting is the most important thing.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, if you just improve your speed, I wouldn't say most people's strokes aren't that bad, to be completely honest.
No, they're not. I don't see. It's very rare that I see someone with a really like
jabby,
a jabby putter or something like that. Like that's easy to identify. I think.
Yeah, and it's like you're like.
But even Donald Trump, remember that video?
Holy crap,
like he was
bad.
putting it around. His putting stroke was the worst stroke I've ever seen.
Donald Trump's putting stroke is fucking atrocious. Okay, and it's like, but again, like
he
pretty good putter though.
That's what I mean. Like you don't need to. Like he's just done it enough. Like you can hit it however you want in putting. Like you can still get pretty good at it. Like he was a good putter.
Absolutely.
With the worst stroke I've ever seen.
And he's actually one of the better drivers of the golf ball I've ever seen, which is partially why he even says, he's like, well, I've won multiple club championships. He's like, he's 250, 260 right down the middle every time. And that's how he's a single digit cap. It's like his putting is atrocious. And he's got the yippiest, like jankiest stroke I've ever seen. But he was able to hit it in the middle of the fairway every single time.
Yeah.
And he doesn't hit it far, but he hits it accurate. So it's like, that's the exception. Sorry, it's the reverse exception to the rule, because you don't have to be a good putter.
Yeah.
You hit it good off the tee, you hit it good into the greens, and then you can kind of stick handle it around and still be okay. And then if you want to make more putts, then it's like, then we can have that conversation.
Yeah, but it's really a fine line there with the putts. Like, you're really nitpicking your game at that point, and it is something to focus on, especially if you're bad. But 1.7 putts is going to be really, really good.
Yeah.
1.8 is still good enough. You're going to be about 32 putts at 1.8, 30 putts at 1.7, and about 28 at 1.6.
And also keep in mind, I'm a plus 4.5.
So that's a big difference too. People don't understand these stats are very situationally oriented, right? So my girlfriend, who also plays golf, she's about a 16, 15 handicap.
Yep.
And
bogey golfer.
but her greens and reg were very low.
Correct.
So her putting stats were incredibly good, and A, because she's a good putter, but B, because
didn't have that many greens.
She didn't have that many greens, so her proximity to the hole is a lot closer because you're hitting a lot of chip shots,
Correct.
right? So it's kind of, it is definitely like relative in that term, but for the most part, she's a great example because she played golf for 3 years and her putting was like one of the best I'd seen. Correct. She never had a putting lesson. She just did it a bunch, and every hole putting was how she was her bread and butter. Yeah. And you're just going to be a good putter if you play 80 rounds of golf a year, 40 rounds of golf a year.
You're going to figure it out.
Yeah.
100%. So our whole premise here is to understand that, like, listen, like, in our opinion, driving is going to be one of the, if not the most important stat, because it's going to put you in positions, again, situationally, put you in positions to be able to score better. As you get better at the game and as you've ticked off these statistics, then we can start focusing on specialty shots, like hitting it from tight lies and all the fun stuff, and then getting better at putting. But until you've, what I like to call the price of admission is to earn the right to be able to say that putt for dough. You have to be focusing on getting off the tee well, gaining speed to put yourself in positions to actually take advantage of those opportunities.